A lot of us share the most common goal in the music space, which is to get your beats into the hands of artists, have them record on it, release it, you make millions of dollars, and you live happily ever after. Something like that. Now, 95% of the time that plan falls short. I think a lot of us struggle to understand why our beats aren't being used by these artists. So put yourself in this POV. You just made a bunch of crazy beats, you get a really good pack together, and you finally have this artist's email that you've been wanting to work with forever, and it's time for you to send that pack of beats to him. You get it all ready, you send it off, and you hear nothing. This type of situation happens way too often, and in my personal opinion, the reason for that is that you probably aren't making beats for artists, you're making beats for producers. This is one of the main problems I see circulating the producer community, especially in newer producers who are just getting their foot in the door. There is this mentality that the beats that you need to make for artists have to be the greatest compositions of all time. And while your beats do need to have a certain level of quality to them, it's always better to just keep it simple. Our main focus as a producer is to create a vision for an artist, not to impress other producers by adding as many 808 switch ups as you can and as many hi-hat rolls as possible. When I first started off collaborating with other producers in the space, I was so worried about how they would view my beats that I would send back to them. Even so much to the point of where I would sometimes tailor that beat to whatever style that other producer makes a lot. So if I was working for somebody that I knew worked a lot with, let's just say Travis Scott, I would take all of those beats and the labs that I would send back to him, and I would make sure that they were the craziest Travis Scott type beat that you've ever heard. And that is not always the way to approach that situation. I found over and over again that even though the person I was sending these labs back to thought that the beats were really good, the beats themselves never ended up really going anywhere or getting used by anyone. I was often making them too complicated for the artist to even catch any kind of vibe to them. I left no room for what I view as the most important thing of a beat, which is the vocals. After I started to recognize this pattern, I shifted my production heavily to focus more on what I thought was good and what I could envision an artist using. I was no longer really concerned if the person I was collaborating with thought that the beat was good enough. It was really only important to me that an artist listening to this beat could hear themselves using it. I also started to take a look at the complexity of my loops and beats, and I noticed that I was just doing way too much. Now, a lot of you guys probably don't know this about me, but I actually went to college for architecture. One really good piece of advice that one of my professors had told me was to take a final product and strip back all of the elements of it until you're left with whatever's absolutely necessary to complete your vision. I use this a lot now in my production today. And at the end of a beat, I'll just kind of go through and sit and listen to it and really dissect what is actually important in this beat and what is contributing to the overall vibe. If I end up finding something that I think doesn't really contribute to that idea, I will end up just muting it and kind of leaving it there to maybe think about it later. If I come back to it and I realize that, okay, this beat sounds kind of off without this, that's how I know that that element is a key contributor to the beat. Now, obviously this seems like a lot to be doing every time you make a loop or a beat, but the more you do it and the more you kind of focus on keeping key aspects, it'll get way easier for your brain to recognize just off the rip, like what is important and what you're maybe adding just because you feel the need to add something. So that's really all I wanted to talk about today, was just the fact that you should be producing for yourself and for artists. You shouldn't be producing to try to impress other producers, because that's going to get you nowhere. At the end of the day, that doesn't really matter what so-and-so producer thinks of the beat that you made. You know, they're not the one that's going to rap on it or release it or whatever. But yeah, super short video today. I just get a lot of questions regarding like how I get placements and what I think the best route is to actually get songs with artists. And that's just my number one piece of advice, is stop making beats for producers. If you guys like this type of sort of commentary content, where I just kind of talk to you guys, definitely let me know in the comments, as well as follow me on Instagram. I am dropping a super crazy drum kit at 3K followers, so be on the lookout for that. And I hope you guys have a blessed day, and I will see you next week. Peace.